Quick, somebody, call the doctor! There's a meteor coming down from the sky! And in the shops, there's live plastic dummies! And... I've got nothing. Let's just roll opening credits. Alright.
Welcome, nesting duplicates and meatbags, to the 50th episode of an Unearthly podcast featuring Spearhead from Space, written by Robert Holmes. I am the Man in Black, and with me are Romeo Moon.
Hello.
Mad Matt.
Hello.
And Ron San.
Always a pleasure.
If you enjoy this, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. We are recording live on March 21st, 2014, 33 years to the day that Tom Baker left Doctor Who.
Oh, also,
And dead silence, so nobody has anything to say about that particular
No,
event.
it was I was me going, really?
Yeah. Yeah, and
It was-
you also forgot Ambassadors of Death.
Did we figure out how many years ago that was? Because I didn't.
1970.
So now we're just doing on this day.
44.
So 44 years
Well,
ago.
I had mentioned that as it was something that people seemed excited about on Facebook,
Okay.
but
But yeah, I looked it up, and yeah,
that,
today
and
is the day for...
it's a slow news week.
Mm-hmm.
You realize I think Ambassadors of Death is the episode right after the one we're covering today.
Some are very
I thought
close
the
to it,
story
yes.
was before that.
It might be. It
Or not.
might be. It might be.
If it wasn't the
this-
next story, it's the story
this is
afterwards.
This is the first season, I think, to only have 4 serials in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
And
the
that's-
last.
and
for
that's
quite some
only-
time as well.
Yeah, because the Silurians was what 7, 8 episodes.
There were 3 7-parters in this season. They really went with the season 7 thing.
Really?
Or
Let's
they
see.
just, or they just really wanted to save on sets and costumes.
Well, they had a lot to establish. I didn't
You can guess
remember.
which one's my money is on.
This one was only 4 episodes. I didn't remember the Ambassadors of Death being that long.
It was
And I
quite
didn't think
long,
it-
as I recall.
I didn't think
I'm
Inferno
pretty
was
sure
that
every
long.
serial except for this one this season is a 7-parter.
I do remember Diamanda
Um,
talking about how a lot of these serials were really long.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you're right. Inferno was 7 episodes. I didn't think it was that long. I don't
It's
remember it
that
being
good that you
long.
don't remember it being that long.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a long time. I really ought to get a copy of that.
But yeah, that was basically our budget's cut and we just spent a bunch of money on color cameras, so we're going to make as few sets and costumes as possible.
Yeah,
By
it
making
might have been
more
a good chunk of
season.
that. By using the same sets over and over and over again.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
could finally
Same
reuse a lot of sets, and they could also borrow other costumes from other things, like the astronaut costumes for Ambassadors of Death.
Did Inferno end up having any of its own sets, or was it basically just redressed versions of the same set?
No, it was the same set that you were at. It just had the different markings on it.
Different
Gotcha.
markings and some
That's what I
retooling
figured
here
it
and
would have
there.
been.
I think they only have
So as you
maybe
mentioned
one
it-
new set altogether for that
And
particular story.
I think a few of them were relit. But
Yeah.
that was about it.
So, as we mentioned, it is a bit of a slow news week, but we do have some news on Series 8 to start off with.
I can find it.
Wait for this.
There it is.
Oh, actually, I did have the link open already. I didn't need to open it again. Peter Capaldi's been nursing an injury on his head, which was not a real injury, but it was initially mistaken as that. So apparently, at some point in the season, the Doctor's head is injured.
All right.
I don't think we really have any details about that, but we do have a blurry photo of the monster from the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's
That's
nice to
pretty
see a full body
interesting.
suit.
Does it mention which
Mhm.
episode this is at this point that they're working on?
No, but it's got to be in the second half of the season,
Yeah, it's gotta be second half if
unless
it's
they're
this
filming
late.
out of order.
I wouldn't think it's. I don't know. I mean, just a couple weeks ago they were doing episode 5, so it's
5 of
quite
13.
possible. Yeah,
So
it's
yeah, this
possible that this is
6.
still
That would still
episode
be the
6 or
first one.
7. I just don't know if this is the still the end of the second filming block or the start of the third. Because
Gotcha.
normally they take a break. They will do a filming block like a week off, do another filming block, just to give the actors a chance to rest up, re-remember their lines, and so they don't burn out so fast.
Hmm. You know, to avoid Patrick Troughton's.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fact that they're only doing, partial seasons. Patrick Troughton was because he was basically on 50 weeks out of 52.
Oh yeah, but that aside too, they hardly gave the man a break.
Here's an interesting thing from people have noticed taking photos of the episode. I was looking through trying to see if they'd mentioned what episode, but apparently the Doctor is wearing a ring where his wedding ring would have been, and it's not Capaldi's wedding ring.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, I can see why they wouldn't want it to be a wedding ring, because the Doctor's technically not married.
But that's
well,
where you would wear a wedding ring, so it.
Well, yeah, it would probably show that that particular piece of skin would be white, so they just put on a ring. I'm surprised they didn't go for like the old William Hartnell big black gem ring.
By the way, if you're looking for that for the stream, Matt, it's toward the bottom of the article, right above the comments.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But the article writer says that it's up to Moffat to explain why the Doctor is wearing it. We'll see how well that works.
It might just be an affectation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like how they say the unmarried doctors. They do realize that the Doctor has about 4 or 5 wives at this point, right?
At least.
The Doctor, interstellar polygamist.
I mean, granted,
Interstellar transchronal polygamist.
Granted, this incarnation of the Doctor doesn't have a spouse yet, but that's only because he hasn't had an episode yet.
I'm wondering how that rule goes under Gallifreyan law. If you or your spouse remarry or regenerates, are you still considered married? And what would happen if that particular spouse crossed the gender line during regeneration?
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Now we're getting into Curse of Fatal Death territory.
Well,
What
we know
happens
it's possible. We know
if
the
you have-
Corsair.
Yeah.
What about offspring? What if you have children with one regeneration and you have children with another regeneration? Are they considered like half brother and half sister? What if both parents regenerate? Are they completely different?
That goes into Time Lord genetics, which is an even scary
then you get into a continuity debate about looms and parents.
We're gonna feed Bill to a loom if he keeps bringing up the looms.
I'm going to sit here and watch this picture of Jenna Coleman, and apparently she's a fan of drinking Evian. I approve. I like Evian. And
that picture.
Debate gone away.
Wah, wah, wah. Anywho, next article then?
Yep, so our next one,
Excuse me.
since he's the one who normally follows the music, I think Randy might be the best. If you're up to it, by the way, if Randy's a bit quiet, he is getting over some illness right now, so don't be too shocked, audience.
Yeah,
but
if I'm
you
off
want
like I
to,
just did, I apologize.
Yeah.
And that would be let's see.
Doctor Who's a tart.
Yes, the Doctor Who the TARDIS edition is something that is currently pre-ordering in the UK to come out on the 25th of April. Or the pre-order will start on the 25th of April. Will end on the 2nd of May when this is coming out, and this is a series of soundtracks and special effects from the last 50 years of Doctor Who, featuring soundtracks from every episode, I think, or a majority of the episodes anyway.
By the way, Matt, I'm not sure if you've already noticed this, but if you click more info, you can get some different views of the product, and you can also zoom in on it if you mouse over the image itself.
Okay.
Yeah, and you will look down and you can start seeing what's going to be on the discs. And like I said, a good chunk of the first discs are all special effects.
The TARDIS is made of wood, by the way, so it's not going to be some flimsy plastic thing that falls apart when you get it.
Yeah, it's a big, high-quality piece.
Which is good, because it is 135 British pounds.
Yeah, that's about, and this is rough, mind you, $200 US. And even more when international shipping is factored in.
Yeah.
So this is not a casual purchase for anybody. I mean, this is costing as much as a new generation console, just about.
It's
Just about.
10 pounds to ship within the UK, 36 pounds to ship within Europe.
So that's about another $60 added on.
I don't know what.
No, that's
ROW
still within
stands
Europe.
For. Yeah.
Oh.
That's
I don't know
not.
what ROW is referring to.
Yeah, that's gotta be expensive as hell to get a hold of.
Yeah, that's going to be at least.
I'll wait for the digital download. As much as I don't want to.
But then you don't get the nice TARDIS.
Exactly.
Right.
As I said, as much as I don't want to, I'll wait for the digital download and I'll make my own little TARDIS out back. We got some wood supplies out there.
TARDISes aren't made; they are grown.
So apparently,
Says
half
you.
the CDs are sound effects.
I wish. It's bothering me that I don't know what this ROW is supposed to abbreviate. I might just mean anywhere outside of Europe or something, but I don't know. Oh, rest of world.
Yeah.
Okay, so rest of world it's 76 pounds shipping. So that's
about
$110, $120, $120.
So
yeah, so you were
making
right. You said you thought it'd be about $100 international shipping.
Yep. I guesstimated, and I was right. So yeah, $100, making it about $300 to $325.
Hell.
For this lovely set.
I'll just wait for the digital download. Dang.
I hope for that the sound effects are royalty free.
No kidding.
Probably not.
It depends.
I mean, you are talking about a set that is essentially 26 CDs.
Yeah. And I've also technically used a Dalek sound effect on my review show and it never got flagged.
No, the BBC.
While using my own 3D rendered Dalek, in fact.
Well, the BBC is a little lax on that, but
Give it time.
Anyway.
Give it time and some very zealous fan.
Anyway, the first 11 CDs are sound effects, and then they've got basically highlights from each Doctor on the remaining CDs, or is it? It might even be more than that. But whatever. From what I can tell, it's nothing that has not already been released musically, except for maybe some music from the specials that just came out, but I hadn't seen anything that was particularly standing out to me when I was looking at it.
Bonus track, Day of the Moon. Oh, that's right. You mentioned the one from the Snowmen, right?
Yeah, there is a little bit from Name of the Doctor, but I don't see anything from Day or Time of. So it looks like
There's a track from Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, because we really need to remember that.
Hey,
you can't see it right now, folks.
The music I've never had any complaints about Murray Gold's music.
Okay, fair point.
Fair point, but still, like we need memories of that particular episode. Rather drink a Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster.
In fact, I have gotten to the point where I'm no longer rating episodes on music because the fact that Murray Gold is basically excellent as always. If Murray Gold's music suddenly took a dip in quality, or they switched from Murray Gold, then I would have to start reevaluating, wouldn't I?
You start paying more attention to it, yeah.
This might have been released already. I don't know, but one of the bonus tracks on the 10th Doctor disc is the song that they're singing on stage in Daleks in Manhattan, like
Yes,
that Broadway
it was.
musical
Oh,
or whatever.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, it would
Yes,
have been
it was.
released already by now.
That was on the actual season. Was it season 4, or was that season 3?
Season
I
3.
think. That was on the season 3.
It was Martha, so it would have been series 3.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was on the series 3 set. I remember listening to it.
Alrighty. So next then?
Yeah, moving on.
Yep. And our last bit of news.
Oh, we have 2 bits, technically.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the other one. So
You
which
keep
one do we want to talk
wanting to
about
skip
first?
over. So which one did you skip over, actually?
No, well, I forgot about the one that Randy had brought to our attention after we had discussed the other ones.
Okay.
But yeah, we could discuss that one first. Why not?
Actually,
But,
why don't we
this
discuss mine first, because it's on a
Yeah, that's
music
what I'm
related note?
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is via BBC blogs in this case.
Mm-hmm. That is what just aired on BBC 4 is a series called In Their Own Worlds, 20th Century Composers. Tonight's episode featured Delia Derbyshire. If you don't know who Delia Derbyshire is, she's the person that basically created the Doctor Who theme based on the notes of Ron Grainer. She's the one that created all the electronic whistles and everything that made that particular tune so memorable. To the fact that Ron Grainer, when he first heard it, went, "This is my theme," and it's without it, the Doctor Who theme would never have been so iconic. So she is one of the big figures of Doctor Who.
Admittedly, some of her later work for the series didn't even make it onto the series, but yeah, the first theme was the really big thing.
Does
Yeah,
that make
well,
her the Ron Wasserman of Doctor Who?
What was that?
So does that make her the actually, it kind of does. It makes her the Ron Wasserman of Doctor Who.
Who's Ron Lasserman?
The music behind Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
That would be why I wouldn't know.
Actually, he did multiple years, but yeah,
Yeah,
he has
he
not.
did.
He has since it originally left Saban, and he left Saban. Yeah, he hasn't done any Power Rangers since, technically.
Okay. But yeah, Delia Derbyshire's theme. She was in charge of all the variations of the theme that occurred through the 1980 switch over to the Peter Howells tune, known with the Star Effect, the Starfield theme, as you might know it. And there were a few experimental themes that did not make it through. Those were found on by accident on a couple of international releases that accidentally came out.
There's also a very, very, very forgotten, very alternate version where they actually had John Pertwee singing.
Oh no, that was just him doing it for a gag.
No, that was intended to be a theme, and they went, no.
I don't think they actually intended that for a theme.
Yes, they
I don't
did.
think he did that till after he was already left the series.
Not that I'm aware of. They actually intended that for the series, and they went,
Well,
nah.
we do know he likes singing in the shower from this episode, so maybe he just started singing the theme in the shower.
Pertwee was one of the ones that would still identify himself as the Doctor after he had stepped down from the role.
Same with Tom.
Yeah. To a lesser extent, Tom. Tom kind of went reclusive.
Well, he went reclusive, then he came back, kind of, now.
Yeah. But he still answers to Doctor.
Oh, he did,
But
very much does so.
But he would still, make appearances, non-convention appearances as the Doctor. Here and there, Pertwee would.
Mm.
And I thought he had recorded that one you're referring to, which is known as "I Am the Doctor," ironically the same as Matt Smith's theme music, essentially. I thought he recorded that in like 77, 78.
No, from what I've been hearing, that was pretty much during his first year, and they went, nah, we're not going to use that.
Is Who is the Doctor and I Am the Doctor, are they the same thing, or is that two different things that Pertwee did?
That's Who is the Doctor was something that Fraser Hines did. Jamie.
I don't think so, because I'm seeing Who is the Doctor, first released in 1972, is a single performed by John Pertwee.
Okay, yeah, I've always ever seen that referred to as "I Am the Doctor."
Oh.
And what's weird is when I
been...
Googled trying to find it, I saw both names.
That would have been close to the end of his run as the Doctor then. Weird.
No.
1972 would have been the third season. Yeah. That would have been right around the time he was getting the TARDIS back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, still the later half of his run.
Yeah, it was in the middle. I didn't realize. I thought I'd always seen that when I had grabbed MP3s of that as "I Am the Doctor." So. No, that's right. Fraser Hines, I think, did "Who is Doctor Who."
But apparently this was just released as a single. So I'm not seeing anything about it being intended to be for the show, although it was released as the B-side. Or no, it was released in 1983 with a B-side of the Sea Devils.
Yeah, I thought. I thought he had basically done it for basically a lark, and they threw it on the B-side.
Anywho.
They were like hanging around the BBC, and he's like, "Hey, play the theme a moment. I have an idea." Because if I remember correctly, I heard in an interview that he basically had thought up the words for that almost on the spot. It's not the greatest singing thing in the world, by the way, so don't feel like you have to go out and hear it.
We're just saying, folks.
But if you're a huge fan of Pertwee's shower singing scene, you might just want to pick it up.
Nerds.
All right. So yeah, special on Lee Gerbisher. Move on to the last article.
Yep. That will be Sylvester McCoy is going to be in a new movie, kind of.
Maybe.
He's in a movie, don't you know?
I'm in a movie, don't you know?
Well, we know he's going to be in a movie. He's going to be in a movie this December. This is whether he's going to be in another movie, because they're asking for money.
But
you had this one, Matt?
Oh, yeah.
So it's me. So back in the day, there's this little show called Community. On this show, they had a parody of Doctor Who called Inspector Spacetime.
When was this show, by the way?
Community? I'm trying to recall. I know it was very popular.
I thought it was still on.
I think it might still be on, yeah.
You can't use back in the day to refer to things that still exist.
Well, this is also... If Community's still on, it's been on for quite a while now.
Yeah, I know that it was,
Yes, it's still on...
Connect with Walking Dead.
Yeah, it's still on Thursdays, apparently. On NBC. So
okay.
So it's still an ongoing show, but... Within the show, there is a parody of Doctor Who called Inspector Spacetime. I keep wanting to call him Doctor. There's a parody called Inspector Spacetime. And while it was obviously intended to be a parody and kind of poke fun at things, it also still took itself somewhat seriously. And that's kind of interesting considering the fact that it's also a purely American production. But when Community decided to completely drop Inspector Spacetime and never bring it back, the creators for that particular segment decided to try and keep it going via a web series. The web series got noticed by, in particular, Sony and a couple of other companies that were part of making Community. So they actually changed the title to this really long, crazy title just to keep it safe for the time being. They made at least 6 episodes, all of which apparently have been really very highly praised by the people who have seen it.
Which, by the way, that exact type of story fits very well with Sylvester McCoy's post-Doctor career anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And with the praise that it's getting, they're now decided that instead of continuing a very short series of small episodes, that they are going to try and make a movie instead. And as to how the format of the movie will go off, we're not entirely sure at this point. But essentially, they want to do what they are now titling currently the Inspector Chronicles United Motion Picture about a space traveler who can also travel through time. If that isn't a mouthful.
Yeah, and I don't think you said it right.
The Inspector Chronicles United. Oh, Untitled. I keep saying United. Untitled motion picture about a space traveler who can travel through time.
Yep. Your tongue got twisted on attempt 1.
No, it's I keep my I see it as United for some reason when I try to do it and kind of fast motion there. So it keeps going flip flopping between Untitled and United for some reason. There's a U and an I, and there's a U and an N, and there's an I and a T somewhere in there. So I just, I don't know why my brain's been doing that to me lately.
And by the way, I just clicked on the Indiegogo link. Apparently, they've raised about 90% of their goals so far.
So they are very close to making this a thing, which is cool.
Yeah, they have 8 days left to raise $2,308. Which they probably will.
I take it this is like a Kickstart or something?
It's Indiegogo, which is similar to Kickstarter.
Okay.
And now there's also Patreon now.
Patreon's a little different, yeah.
Yeah,
Patreon's
you pay a certain amount of money per month. You subscribe to a person's work.
Yeah, it's not always long term than a Kickstarter.
If we did it, would be something like someone would contribute per podcast or something and would get benefits for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it would depend on how much we actually finished, would depend on how much they actually ended up paying.
But they apparently are getting Sylvester McCoy to join in as part of the actors group that they're pulling together for this particular movie. And that in itself is interesting because he was the Doctor, and this is a Doctor Who parody. And it's going to be a movie of some sort of format.
And he was the Professor Endodominier. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
He was the Professor.
I think.
Ah.
But, yes. So they're looking for him to guest star as I don't know what for that. But, of course, Sylvester McCoy is now a big Hollywood star, being in The Hobbit, so therefore is not going to be able to give his time cheaply.
Oh, that depends upon how much he likes it.
Not enough, apparently, to work for free.
Well, they're still going to be paying all the actors, you know.
Yeah.
Technically, these people do need to eat, and they can't just do the show on free and pray that people watch enough.
Not enough to work for union rate.
Well, the entire budget of the film is apparently $25,000, so either he's not doing it or he's doing it pretty cheaply.
That's why they're asking. Why is that the entire budget for the Kickstarter?
Yeah, that's the total Indiegogo goal.
Well,
that might. The first part of the goal could be that.
It could also be that is that they have people that will match it, or will grant them a certain amount of money if they can show enough interest by raising X amount of money.
Yeah. Stuff like that does happen too. So it might be just that this is what we really need in order to get the rest of the money that we need.
By the way, what it's saying is I don't like their wording, which is why I'm stumbling over the way I'm rephrasing it. But his character's name is Uncle Roderick, an enigmatic part of the new cast of characters. So,
Are they actually
doesn't say particularly much, but
are they actually focusing more on the Inspector Space-Time bit, or?
Well, this is totally an Inspector Space-Time movie.
So it's a movie basically about a fiction that's a movie featuring it's like the Geki Ganger OAVs for Nadesico. Geki Ganger was a show inside the anime Nadesico, and then they made OAVs that were actually the show. And that's like what they're doing here, I guess.
Well, that's what they kind of started doing with the Inspector Space-Time.
Essentially a fan-created spin-off, if I'm understanding it right.
Yeah, from the beginning it was a fan-created spoof, but it went off on its own after they didn't want to continue it on Community, and they're even continuing it even further as its own movie.
Anybody here fans of either Voyager or Stargate Atlantis?
It still has some connection to the series because one of the people behind this was an actor on the show, Travis Ritchie.
But they're also not allowed to use the name that they called it in Community either, so they're
that's just
definitely facing limitations from that.
Yeah, because Sony basically gave them a shutdown order. So
if they kept using the name, yes.
Somebody from...
Again, it has nothing to do with Community anymore. It has one of the actors from it, but that's because he played the character to begin with. And he still likes doing it.
I'm going through the other guest stars on the Indiegogo.
Who wouldn't? Even if it's in parody, you're essentially playing the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
What they're got to be worried about now is the BBC giving them a cease and desist.
Well, it's not called Doctor Who.
I know, but they could still possibly...
Or Professor.
Or Professor.
As long as they don't use a Dalek, I think they're safe.
Yeah, that would be a problem. I think the BBC's still a little sore at Bill Baggs' video, even to this date.
Bill Baggs.
The guys that did the Professor. And the Stranger, that kind of stuff.
Considering that what Nick Briggs has gone on to do, I think that they've at least partially forgiven the people involved in it and the ideas behind it.
Yeah.
It's like between the audio visuals and his role in Bill Baggs stuff, he was not a bit player, and he's certainly more than a bit player in Doctor Who now.
Oh, by the way, have I mentioned that Inspector Space Time travels in a red phone booth from America?
Yeah, I'm just noting that the BBC will probably be watching this one like a hawk.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised, but they're still not going to directly rip it off. It is a spoof.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were okay as it was, a feature, or as a feature on something else, because other people have done more obvious Doctor Who parodies as skits on stuff.
I'm so annoyed. One of those actresses they mentioned is from Doctor Who Big Finish, but her Big Finish stuff is not on her IMDb page, so I have no idea what she did. Chase Masterson.
Oh, I know she's done some stuff. I just can't remember what. She's
also from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, I think she was in the Seventh Doctor Deep Space Nine parody episode. I cannot remember the name of it. Other than that, I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. So anyway,
there's side ways of looking it up. There's a reason I don't use IMDb that much.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what the Indiegogo is.
She played Vienna Salvatore in the Big Finish audio story The Shadow Heart, and Peggy Brooks in Night of the Storm Crow.
Ah,
And of course, she's best known as being Lita on Deep Space Nine. And the way I looked that up, by the way, Bill, is I
yeah,
went to the TARDIS data core and looked up her name.
gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah,
Because
I
if
just
it's
had clicked on the link that they provided, and it was useless for that.
Resistance is useless.
okay, so I think we're done with the news.
Yep.
Yep, pretty much.
All news
So,
is good news.
before we go to the review, it's our normal tradition to do a summary of the episode, and I believe Bill, you had that.
Yep, I'm ready for once.
He has his thoughts collected on paper.
Wow,
Paper?
that's a
What the heck
first.
is paper?
Yeah, I don't use that.
Okay,
Don't know where Matt
digital
got that
screen
from.
medium then.
Matt, you said the P word.
All right, take it away,
Si
Bill.
6 months in real time after the revelation of the Time Lords and the Doctor was forced to change his appearance, we open to a unit radar technician, reacting to blips that appear to be flying in formation with one another. Meanwhile, the TARDIS materializes and the Doctor collapses in the countryside, leading to his hospitalization. A scientist named Liz Shaw arrives at unit headquarters, where Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart explains the purpose of unit and of the meteorites, presumably the radar blips that have recently hit Earth. During the conversation, he describes a man known as the Doctor. From here, a string of revelations about the Doctor takes place. He has two hearts, he is not human, the Brigadier does not recognize him, he recognizes the Brigadier, and John Pertwee's Patrick Troughton impression is uncanny. Once the Brigadier leaves, a group led by a man who could be Angus Scrimm's shorter cousin attempt to kidnap the Doctor, who escapes from them before being shot by the unit soldiers trying to find him. After the Doctor's return to the hospital, there is one of the creepiest sequences of dolls being made that I have ever seen. A former partner visits the factory where they're being made, revealing that the owner is under the thrall of the short, tall man, and something strange is going on. Further discussions between the short, tall man and the factory owner reveal that the meteorites are energy transmitters that he needs to find. The Doctor steals an outfit from a man at the hospital and convinces a unit soldier to bring him to HQ. The Doctor and Liz try to analyze some materials from the meteorite crash, during which more exposition about the Doctor is given, while he looks at her like she just dribbled on her shirt. The Doctor tricks Liz into obtaining his TARDIS key, after which he discovers that the TARDIS dematerialization code has been changed, which is later retconned to the circuit having been removed. At this point, I should mention Sam Seeley, who to this point hasn't progressed the plot so much as simply adding a human dimension to the overall story. From here, his plot does both, as a meteorite that he gave to his wife leads to the first appearance of the Autons, plastic soldiers, outside of the doll factory. Previously, they menaced the other side character, the former partner I had mentioned, to keep him from snooping around. Now they are on the hunt for their missing transmitter, which unit intervention prevents them from obtaining. The Autons use a replica of a general to dissuade unit from attacking the factory as they prepare for the exact moment to launch their attack. At a display of plastic figures allegedly intended for Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, the Doctor and Liz discover the real general and discern the plan to replace key figures in power with Auton duplicates. The Doctor and the short, tall man confront one another, and the Doctor is introduced to the Nestine consciousness, a tentacled monster made of plastic. Using a device they created to destroy Autons, the Doctor and Liz kill the Nestine consciousness, ending the invasion. From there, they foreshadow next season's opener, and the Doctor attaches to unit permanently.
Yay.
Very good.
Okay. Well, I should have mentioned this earlier, but those of you that are watching this pre-recorded might actually benefit by going back and watching our podcast on the War Games if you haven't already, because this is the episode that immediately follows the War Games, albeit after a season, a season break. But the where the Doctor shows up and everything is immediately following that, or is it?
Or is it? Dun,
According
dun.
Ah.
to many fan debate, the Doctor didn't actually get force regenerated and dumped onto Earth immediately after the War Games, but instead wound up spending time with Jamie and possibly Victoria again, based on appearances in, or based on words and appearances done in the Five Doctors and the Two Doctors. This has led many fans to believe in what is referred to as Season 6B.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually a series of comics, I think, that eventually wound up taking place during Season 6B and a few novels.
Mm-hmm.
It is the only reason that we could explain the Doctor's appearance in the Five Doctors, and yet knowing the fact that Jamie and Zoe were sent back with their memories erased after his trial,
Mm-hmm.
and why Jamie and Victoria would be working, why Jamie and the Doctor would have been working for the Time Lords as a dispatch agent at the beginning of the Two Doctors.
Yep.
The validity of this is, of course, arguable, and of course, Doctor Who continuity is never, of course, the tightest thing in the universe. But it's kind of a popular theory by some. Regardless, the direct screen appearance is following the War Games. Anything else is assumed to have happened off camera, so to speak. This is still the direct result of the War Games trial, of him appearing regenerated on Earth to start his exile. It's also, of course, this is the first episode to be shown in color, which is a big, huge step for Doctor Who.
And as a result of that, they pretty much treat this episode as though it's the first episode that at least half of the audience has ever seen. Whether that's actually the case or not, we'd have to look at the numbers.
I believe from what I saw on their Wikipedia, and actually I believe I still have the Wikipedia up. Yes, I do. Scanning down, broadcast date, the 3rd to the 24th of 1970. Viewers in millions, 8.4 to 8.1 million each episode. These episodes were huge.
That's not that big for Doctor Who. At least it wasn't in the 60s. I mean, a Dalek episode you could expect to easily pull above that for most Dalek episodes. Not every single episode.
It's nothing to sneeze at. I think even
No,
the biggest Doctor Who episode only got 12.
This is not far behind.
What I mean is relatively, you can't really go off that and say that it brought in a new audience other than people who might have seen Doctor Who before. You can't really make that judgment just from those numbers. At least.
But it was something that was worth looking into, because U.S. television had already gone to color and had since like 67, 66. And at this point, U.S. color episodes were coming across the pond.
Although, from what I understand from people who lived in Britain at the time, there's still barely more than a couple of color TVs out. They were still very expensive.
Yeah, but even so, for example, during the previous season, they had lost some ratings because they were going up against Batman, which was a vivid color show from the United States.
Although most people were watching it in black and white, at least in the UK.
Yes.
Yeah, but they were thinking, it's evolve or die time.
If this silly little show is getting color, then what are we doing wrong?
Yeah, if we don't keep up, it's keeping up with the Joneses, They're all having color programming. And more British people are going to be getting color TVs as theirs wear out. And they see that all these American programmings are coming out in color and we're still showing black and white. Yeah.
It's kind of like with HD.
Yeah,
It
I was
kind of
actually
was the same
thinking
thing as
that
HD, yes.
the HD or the 16 by 9 revolution, either one you want to look at. Yeah,
Or the current change from DVD to slowly going to Blu-ray.
that's recorded media, and
That's
that's a
part of
totally
HD.
that's a
It's
different
still
kettle of
also the
fish.
conversion from a very low quality to high definition at the same time.
Yeah, actually,
That's part of simply converting to HD.
I was actually thinking it might be a little closer to the digital conversion that the U.S. just force-fed itself,
Hmm.
going from broadcast air to digital TV. But they wouldn't have had a choice in that matter. So
Mm.
the broadcast in HD or the broadcast in 16 by 9, which I think is actually part of the digital revolution.
Yeah. Part of it, yes.
But I think some stuff was still being aired in 16 by 9, even back on the network days. Or broadcast days, I should say, because we still have networks for now.
As far as Fox is concerned, we'll still have networks.
I foresee a future where, programming all becomes a la carte. On demand is the way everything goes. On demand is
Eventually,
streaming.
I don't see it quite dying out just yet, but it's definitely coming onto that verge.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at that point, would you really need a network distributor, or would the individual studios each just have their on-demand packages? That becomes the question.
Because doesn't WB have their own kind of rental service and streaming service now? Or that's what I heard. That was one of the things that was going to hit Netflix supposedly, is that WB was having their own streaming service, so they were going to pull all their movies and shows off of Netflix.
Yes, Warner. You mean Warner Brothers? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I still think WB, and I think of the old WB channel before it became CW.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
That's
what the
just
CW
me.
is. Okay.
Yeah.
CW is a merge between the old WB and UPN Paramounts. Neither one could exist on their own, so they kind of merged themselves together. Um, and they seem to be at least surviving together. But yeah, Warner Brothers Pictures did say they were doing that, and that was why Netflix lost a whole bunch of stuff in the middle of last year. I'm not sure if it's going to be successful or not, but what'll eventually happen is everybody and their brother is going to have a Netflix-like thing, and they're going to oversaturate the market, and they'll start merging again.
I wonder if that has any relation to all of the new Marvel Netflix exclusives that they announced. All the shows that they were going to be airing exclusively on Netflix.
That's, I think, because Disney is signed up pretty exclusively with Netflix.
So yeah, Netflix is not by any means dying anytime soon.
With their respective comic companies as part of their arsenal, they're pretty much willing to hammer on each other, and pretty much everything one does, the other is going to do something to counter it.
Yeah, well, things like Netflix and stuff is going to become the networks of the future.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to eventually happen here, though, is that once you get to that point, a lot of these entertainment companies, not the actual networks, but the companies that work for the networks, the individual studios, etc.,
right,
are eventually going to say, why do we need a middleman?
Well, and I know, Amazon has its video rental service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's also Vudu, where you can rent and own digital movies.
Well, if you look at it, like already, both DirecTV and Comcast, it's entirely possible to just either go on TV or go online and watch content on demand. There's still some things that aren't available that way that you can watch through the regular airing, but that's only a matter of refinement.
Yeah, but it will. I mean, I'm just saying that this will happen. That eventually somebody.
Yeah, we're already moving in that direction.
Yeah, But somebody, once we do move in that direction, is going to actually say, why do we need the network, the network middleman, and or even the Netflix style distributor, and the individual studios will just start having their stuff ready for streaming.
YouTube.
So instead of going to that, you'd be going to like what's the company, like Mutant Enemies website, and seeing their stuff for Joss Whedon's works, etc.
Sort of like the only way to watch the latest episode of Arrow without doing something illegal or without paying for a Hulu Plus subscription is to go to the CW's website.
Yes, but I'm saying that once that's happening, even the CW won't be necessary. Who makes Arrow?
I got you. That's a good question. I'm not even.
It would have to be Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers owns
No,
DC.
I don't. Just because they own the license doesn't mean they make the show, though.
Oh, as in them themselves. No, I'm not sure what production house under WB makes it.
Berlanti Productions. So
like,
you would go
like Gotham, I think, is being produced by Fox, even though obviously it's a Warner Brothers license.
right. But you would go to you'd go to Berlanti Production. Although with Arrow, it might actually be, because it's actually a DC license, you might be going to like DC Entertainment.
Right.
But that's what I mean. You would go to the company that actually makes the show, not the network that actually handles the distribution currently. They'll just realize that it's cheaper that way. And, there will be websites that do packaging for this, but I don't know if those will be charged services or not. But that's my prediction on the future. But yeah, getting back on the topic, before I start doctoring even more, yes, the go to color was a big deal. It also was an expensive deal.
Yep.
All new color cameras, color coordinating the sets. Prior to this, they never had to worry about that because they just did what looked good on a black and white camera. This is why we discovered, after looking at it, the TARDIS console room was kind of a bluish color, and the actual console itself was kind of a avocado green.
Mm-hmm.
And that Troughton's gray outfit included a lot of like bright reds and blues and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because it looked good on black and white, did not necessarily look good on color. But now, since they were going to color, they had to color coordinate better.
Which makes me wonder what color Zoe's catsuit actually was.
Oh.
I think some of the colorizations I've seen have been purple, but
I've
I
seen
can't
people do
guarantee
it as
that
purple,
was
but
right.
I don't know. That might just be a fan fantasy rather than what the actual color was.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I was trying to remember if there was ever a publication photo with her in the costume that was in color, but I don't remember one. Regardless, it was a big deal to them because that meant that they had to completely learn how to redo the show. They had to hire new people. This was basically the beginning era of a new production staff.
Yep. I think Spearhead from Space carried over the previous producer, but
that was about it.
From there everything was the new team.
Yeah, and even the monsters had to change because the monsters had to look good in color now too.
Yeah.
Albeit for that just means a new coat of paint on the rubber suit, but still.
Although I don't know if all of the monsters in the Pertwee era looked good in color, like the mutant gumdrops a couple seasons in the future.
You didn't say everything worked, Bill. It was still colorful. It was very much 70s.
What I mean is those gumdrops would have not necessarily been that color coordinated if they had been filmed in black and white.
Yeah.
Sure.
That was the difference, is they wanted to make it there. And, I think that's one of the reasons Batman actually was the way it was the fact that these producers are like, look, we can do stuff in color. Let's go full tilt.
The only color image that I'm seeing, assuming that it's authentic, it's actually a gray costume.
Hmm.
Let me put the link in the chat here.
Seriously, moving the conversation on, and we're still going to obsess on Zoe's cat suit.
We are moving the conversation along, but once we ask a question, it needs to be answered.
You keep saying that, Randy. You do. You do.
Can't just let it go, man.
We need to know what Zoe looked like in that outfit in color.
Yeah, that's kind of a gray blue.
Grayish silver, yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on what you photograph it with, it could come up with different tints to it too.
I actually, and this is a completely different, bizarre topic, want to actually get a close-up swatch of Jamie's kilt and actually see if it matches a Scottish clan tartan, and see if it actually does match the McCrimmon clan. Just out of curiosity, because each clan has its own tartan pattern.
Yeah.
Just curious.
I don't think they paid that much attention, Randy.
I'm not sure. I was just kind of curious if they did. It was just an off-the-wall notice. Then again, this is England, which is really close to Scotland, so they might have.
Mm.
If it was American production, no way in hell. But you never know. It's just something that idly hit my curiosity looking at the picture. But we're not going to talk about Jamie and Zoe anymore. Let's continue on with this. The fact that they had to spend all this money on new cameras, new production, they had to change their budget works, meant, of course, that that Doctor Who was basically spending most of their money on background stuff. So that meant all these wonderful new sets and new locations and everything had to go. So, as a budget-saving issue, the Doctor was exiled to Earth by the writers, something that would continue for the next 2 seasons, with the occasional episode when they had money
to splurge
and
go off somewhere else. But also this first season in particular, I don't know if we noted it on the podcast or not.
No.
I don't know if we noted it on the podcast or not, but this first season in particular, the stories got really long. Like I believe we mentioned Inferno was like over 7 episodes or so.
Basically, season 7 is a 4-parter and 3 7-parters, which is almost entirely, or should I say, 90% chance that 90% of that decision was made to save on the costs of everything that they just splurged on in recreating the series.
Not necessarily, Bill. You got to remember, this is coming off of a production that had a 10-part finale and a 12-part series before. So long episode runs were still considered.
Yes, but those were already cost-saving measures, which is. Well, I mean.
I'm not sure they were not so much.
Let me get the numbers. Let me look at the numbers myself to back up what I've read about it. But
I'm pretty sure the fact that these stories are running a bit longer than they normally did does help the fact that they're on a very tight budget, so they didn't need to make as much as they used to.
A lot of Troughton stories were stretched out past what the writers had intended for the sole purpose of not having to make more costumes and sets.
Yes, but at the same time, I would argue that for these particular episodes, I don't think they were stretched. They come off as written that long.
Well, they could have had time to write them that long, though, too. They shot out the first story of the season like it was intended, and they priced very quickly on the other ones just to still keep it feeling right, but to add enough fluff that it could last longer.
Yeah, but even when you pad something like that on a rewrite, you can usually tell that they've padded it to add time.
True, but not necessarily always.
They could have always said when they commissioned it, we need this to be a long story. Make sure the script is long. And the
I
writers, I mean,
remember.
we had Hulk, Whitaker. I don't know anything about Houghton's, but actually, the Ambassador's Death had several high-profile writers. So definitely writers that knew what they were doing enough that it's entirely possible that they had that discussion beforehand.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, I've watched Inferno, and until you mentioned today, I would have sworn it was 4 episodes.
Again,
I
maybe
would
that
have
was
I would
planned
have
to be an
sworn on a
actual.
Bible
Again,
that it was
if
only
you
4 episodes long.
again sticking with this, it could have been planned for Inferno in particular that it was already going to be a long episode. We don't know for sure, but that one in particular, I do recall, came off really well out of some of the other ones. So I wouldn't be surprised if that one was intended to be the long episode of the season. The other ones just got extended as long as it.
I don't remember the Ambassadors of Death feeling stretched. The Silurians,
Oh, I
I would
felt
argue,
it.
yes.
I remember feeling the Ambassadors of Death felt a bit stretched at points.
Mm. The Silurians, I would argue, definitely felt stretched.
Well, I'm gonna say one thing about the stories being longer in this season. That means that Liz Shaw only gets four
4
stories as a
serials.
companion and no send off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no send off as she disappears between seasons.
Yeah.
I actually really kind of liked her in this too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's kind of like Donna Noble. Actually, she's kind of the no nonsense. I'm not going to take any of your crap. I'm a scientist.
With the added advantage of a scientist, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a serious companion. I'm not here to fawn over you. I'm not here to play comic relief.
Which ultimately is why they canned her.
They canned her because when Pertwee was coming into this, they were originally billing Pertwee to be the comic relief with Liz to be the straight man. The problem is Pertwee didn't want to play the Doctor that way. He wanted to play it closer to himself.
Well, there's that, but there's also a few other things that may have been going on in the background, as does happen in Doctor Who a lot.
Yeah, but I know this is true about Pertwee. They originally billed him to be comedy. If you remember the scene where he's fighting with the Nestine, and he has one of these most really goofy faces that he's making as he's being strangled. Yeah.
Whereas Liz is just watching, he's like, "What?" and then he just gets choked by the tentacle hentai.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but he didn't want to play it. He wanted to play it closer to himself. And Pertwee was a man that served during World War II in naval intelligence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although I've got to say, the result in this episode of him being a cross between the second and third Doctors works out really well.
Mm-hmm. But it's decided he wanted to play it closer to himself. He wanted to play man of action.
Yeah.
He wanted to be James Bond Time Lord, which is what he came to be by the end of the season. And the producers basically went, so we've got Action Man and Straight Man. We don't really have somebody funny. So they killed Liz and replaced her with Joe.
Who is your stereotypical bumbling idiot.
Yes.
To be honest.
Although
by kill,
I mean
figuratively.
Put on a bus.
Yeah, put on a bus. It was just.
Well, I've got to say the Brigadier has enough punchlines if they had amped that up slightly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know.
The Brigadier was almost the Jamie of some stories.
Lethbridge Stewart himself, though, makes a very good straight man. I mean, if you watch the Troughton episodes, he and Troughton played well off each other in that same
I need
role.
to see the episodes with him and Troughton.
I've only seen scenes.
Smack the both of you.
I keep wanting to see The Invasion, but every time we show it at GeekCon, I'm either not on shift or in the middle of getting rack time. And you know how desperately I need that when I work GeekCon.
Smack you both.
Or we'll do it, or we'll wind up doing it during a panel I have to be on.
I don't think it's ever hit a panel that we're on, so that's not the excuse yet.
Not me. Remember, that you guys aren't on. like fan fiction ones.
Oh, I guess there's the occasional fanfiction one, yeah. But still, I don't think it's ever hit any of your panels yet. I don't know why you missed it this last year.
I think I was taking Erin to dinner.
Yeah, we went out to Daba.
Yeah. We went out for Indian food because it was like the only time we could actually get time together that entire convention.
So that said, John Pertwee.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about
or in this case, maybe more the Brigadier.
Follow the map.
But yeah,
I like the Brigadier in this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have nothing against Nick Courtney. He's a
Oh,
great
absolutely
guy.
not.
He's a great character. The Brigadier was a wonderful character. I'm just saying that he makes a great straight man for the Doctor.
And the thing, he's not quite the exasperated, ready with a punchline at the end of the episode guy yet. But you can tell he's halfway there. He's basically like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on, but my two scientists can deal with that. I can do the military stuff.
Yeah, he really doesn't start getting that dry wit until I think the next season.
Yeah, next season in particular. Because next season you start dealing with demons and the Master and all this other craziness.
You kind of it's kind of like the Brigadier develops the Buffy response. You kind of have to start making fun with it, because otherwise you're
going to lose it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's screaming at the abyss. It really is.
It's like, kind of think of it like in the unit years. Yeah, they pretty much are on a hellmouth. It seems at times.
Pretty much.
Oh, look, it's another Cthulhu monster. Well, my Sandy has just been spat upon again. Hi, Doctor. You can take care of it.
I really wonder if Joss Whedon, when writing Buffy, was kind of thinking the unit-esque responses with kind of a hipster flair. For how that's kind of, I wonder if that's how he kind of thought of.
That would make sense considering that Russell T Davies drew upon both the Unit era and Buffy as inspirations when he brought back Doctor Who.
True.
Yeah, it'd be a nice bit of synergy there. But yeah, so you could that's why that they did the Liz to Joe switch. Just because the Doctor wasn't who they thought he was going to be.
And since we were talking about BBV earlier, it should be mentioned that Liz did eventually return to film, which does make a BBV production become in at least some forms of Doctor Who canon in the Probe series.
Yeah, what was Liz's actor? Carolyn Johns, I think.
Carolyn John, yes. And I believe they licensed the use of the Liz Shaw name, but they could not use anything else from Doctor Who.
Yeah, I was just seeing if she'd ever made any guest voices on. She has. She's been in a couple of the Big Finish audios.
Yes.
Not playing Liz Shaw, of course, but actually she was in one.
Oh
I was
yeah.
gonna say, yeah, they really should.
The Bluetooth. She recounts a narrative as Liz Shaw from an adventure she once had with a Doctor and Unit.
Oh, it's a companion
And she
chronicle?
had. I'm not sure about that. She did. Yes, because she did play in 4 more companion Chronicle audio plays as Liz Shaw. Wow. So. And the last one was called The Last Post, which she recorded on 26 January 2012, and she died in June that year. So,
so no more coming.
So there's going to be no more Liz. I'm sorry, it happens.
God, we've been losing the Western right the last couple years.
Just to hit that checkbox, she died of cancer.
Is that like our catchphrase now?
What?
Cancer.
Died of cancer.
Died of cancer.
It's generally anybody that was in that filming for Doctor Who. I just checked.
Seriously, BBC, check your previous actors for cancer if you don't mind, just a bit.
Yeah,
We're kind of getting sick and
it's
tired of hearing about them snuffing it to the same problem.
this is a blanket warning to anybody who acted in Doctor Who from like 1963 to pretty much 1988. Yeah, get yourself into a doctor, have yourself checked, because the amount of actors we have lost to cancer is staggering. I know it is the number one killer in the world, but still, just the percentages there are a little skewed.
Yeah, it's a little bit kind of ginormous.
If your doctor asks why, tell them you worked in a high asbestos environment for a good period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, the BBC didn't know better.
All right, so moving on for our predilection for morbidness. Yes, but so yeah, they had to basically reestablish the Brigadier in this. Not that I mean, he hadn't been established in the previous two, but they had to establish him now as a regular
Now
character.
he was a main character. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yes.
for the first half of the first episode, he is the familiar character for longtime Doctor Who fans to say, okay, I know this character, so I know I'm watching the same show.
He is also he's also the ball of measurement that Pertwee has to act up to convince that he is the Doctor.
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
Normally it's the standing companion, but of course with the Grand High change at the end of the Troughton era, there were no standing companions.
Well, I've got to say
So
the fact that he pulls off such a good Troughton, like his voice, his man, like the inflections of his voice are so Troughton that really almost sells it on its own, even without the Brigadier.
Well, for the
mm-hmm.
first 3 months that it talks,
He is
yeah.
brilliant in this episode.
Yes, it shows what a good actor Pertwee is. Um and like most actors, he came in with a little bit of trepidation about doing this role. It was less than Troughton's, because Troughton had already established that you could do the regeneration. Pertwee had to establish that you could do a regeneration regularly and still pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And also changing up the entire formula around that particular doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Which they kind of had completely changed the show around Troughton as well, but
Yeah, this was a little more so.
Yeah, not quite as
Yeah.
large of a jump though as
this
it
was
was for
even more of a
Pertwee.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, this was the production shakeup for this was like when Tennant left.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Pretty much all of the old staff except for the head producer left. And they had to bring in everybody new, and some of the regular line staff that would normally have stayed on were changed because of the new equipment.
Of course,
Like
they
Cat.
did manage to keep. They did manage to keep some of their good writers. Like
Yes.
I mentioned this earlier. This season we have Robert Holmes, who I think he had written before. Malcolm Hulk, David Whitaker, Terrence Dix.
Yes,
and then I think the other two this season are both new writers.
And those names are all Doctor Who legends.
Yes, pretty
Yeah,
much.
Although
some of the biggest names
a few of them weren't when they were writing at this point. They went on to become Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's after these first couple of seasons
Yeah.
that they became pretty much prolific for the show.
But yeah, so you've got a good staff of writers, which always helps. When you've got somebody who can write and write well, bringing in and introducing you to this character, and the plot of Spearhead from Space pretty much becomes the template for which a lot of unit stories are based.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
something lands on Earth, the Doctor gets involved. Doctor and unit have to square off against each other as well as the alien menace.
Even aliens acting through human
Puppets?
puppets. Thank you. That's the perfect word. Puppets.
By the way, you mentioned everyone except for the producer changed. There was one producer for the War Games and Spearhead from Space. Otherwise, that changed. The script editor is the only one that stayed.
The script editor.
If I'm
Okay.
saying it's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Which
I
is
knew
which
somebody
was
said.
Karen Sticks.
Yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, yeah, this becomes a template of the aliens acting through human puppets, evil corporation, etc. Um, being somewhat behind the whole scenario became a lot of unit staples
Mm-hmm.
over the course of the next 2-3 years. It would become less so when the Doctor got his mobility back, but it was much like Troughton's era was a lot of base under siege.
Mhm.
Um, and if you boiled it down to its core essentials, was the same story. Um,
If
just
you
with
boiled it down.
different flares based on the monster and the era. This one all kind of became that alien infiltration attack. There were a few more sub themes and varieties they could do with this, such
As,
as the aliens who appear as friends but turn to be evil.
or something like the Silurians, which instead of actually coming from space, are actually a race that
Yeah,
existed before humans and were
they
hidden
they
underground.
they do. I mean, for the limitations of the unit era, this first season really plays with a lot. You have the Silurians, which is the Doctor and unit going against each other's goals.
Mm-hmm.
Ambassadors of Death, which I don't know as much about, and then Inferno, which is pretty much a one-in thing that I mean,
Uh,
granted, a lot of its premise had to do with budget cutting and such, but
But
it's
the
still
fact that
it's
they first, this is like the first
completely
major
original in
memorable
Doctor
attempt
Who.
at dabbling with alternate universes and stuff, though, too.
Yeah.
Oh, also something to bring up. Actually, no, that's a different story. Never mind. I was going to bring up something about Inferno, but it's a different story, so never mind.
yeah,
Off topic.
yeah. But no, it's just that this kind of started to set some of those templates.
Mhm.
Um,
I
which
really
is,
liked it. I really
oh
liked it
yeah,
because it felt like the story felt a little bit more grounded in reality, and then you've got this weirdness going on, which really kind of hammered home a lot of the fantasy elements of it. I really liked that.
Oh,
yeah.
speaking of which, the fact that we have these aliens that are taking over plastic objects, including the store mannequins.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Captain Jack, when he was a child, could not walk near mannequins without protection of his mother.
You mean John Barrowman?
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
He saw this episode when he was but a wee lad,
yeah. That's
and
one of the
from then on, he couldn't look at mannequins for a good couple of years.
it stuck in the mind of many people, including Russell T Davies, which is why he made a modern version
Mm-hmm.
when
And
he made
I have to
Rose.
say, looking at this episode, I kind of feel like this episode is probably the single most thing that influenced the entire Russell T Davies style of creating Doctor Who.
Mhm.
Probably to an extent, yes. There's a lot of stuff that he threw out, but he kind of took the distillation of this
Right.
as part of that. And yeah, that's because he was most influenced by this era. And actually, he was influenced by a lot of Pertwee pretty much through the end, because he had mentioned himself that he was a huge fan of Sarah Jane, and that comes in at the end of the Pertwee era.
Yep. Starts at the very end
I
of
Um,
the
think
Pertwee
Sarah
era.
Jane was allowed to leave Earth more than Russell T. though.
yes. Well, more, yeah. But yeah, I'm just mentioning the fact that this had so much ground to do, because it had to, introduce the new Doctor and have him prove himself. It had to reintroduce us to the Brigadier, and then it had to reintroduce and begin the fleshing out of Unit.
Yeah,
Um,
we're basically saying here's this recurring character that you kind of know. Now we're going to sell him to you as one of the stars of the show.
For at least the next
correct.
4 years.
As basically a quote companion unquote, though the companionness of the Brigadier is of course in debate by a
Mm.
few hardcore fans, because he
Well, those
really never
few
traveled in
hardcore
the
can take a
TARDIS.
punch to the
Well,
bottom lip.
he traveled back in the TARDIS. I don't know if he traveled out in the TARDIS.
I do know he's
From
traveled
what
in the TARDIS. Period.
From
The
the
end. A couple of
antimatter universe.
times. So he is a
yeah.
companion. Bite me.
I mean, Most of what I've seen in terms of challenging the Brigadier as a companion is because he's not the one who follows the Doctor looking up to him. He's more an equal figure that stands on, agrees on some things, disagrees on others, and
Well, that's not
is
what a companion's about. A companion is someone that's
he
there,
acts as a bit
period,
more of
the
an equal
end.
figure than most
It doesn't
companions.
matter what kind of a figurehead they are.
Okay, so
That's ridiculous.
Like what I mean is the Brigadier was never in it for the sake of accompanying the Doctor on adventures,
Well, no, and that
whereas
doesn't
most
need necessarily
companions are.
describe what a companion needs to be either.
I really didn't need to turn this into a hot and fiery debate. I just mentioned that a lot of fan base has that debate.
And we had it here! Ta-da!
I see him as a pseudo companion. He's not like a traveling companion, but he is kind of a defense companion. He helps. He's like a fellow warrior, fellow soldier, or a
Right.
maybe a foil to the Doctor, I guess, because the Doctor,
Absolutely, absolutely. That's his main thing here. Yeah.
and he would proceed to be one of the Doctor's closest friends for almost 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although
Until, of
those years
course,
didn't always pass in Courtney's time.
Although
of course,
I'm sure if someone were to ask the Brigadier, he would say that it felt like 1,000 years.
At times.
yeah.
Have I mentioned about the time that he came to me as a short chap in a big fuzzy coat? Oh, and the Yeti!
I could actually see somebody asking the Brigadier, so the Doctor's known you for 1,000 years, and the Brigadier basically going, "Oh Lord, if it had been that long, I'd have gone mad ages ago." Because
I'm more just picturing him giving a wry look at me like 1,000 years. That sounds about right.
Oh, this is kind of nice. I like this fan cover. A fan cover for Spearhead from Space, and it's done like the cover for Waxworks.
Mm.
That's
anyway,
interesting.
but it also, whereas the previous one had a familiar monster to deal with, the Daleks.
Yes.
Here they had a completely brand new monster in the Autons and the Nestine consciousness.
Right.
So they didn't have that prop that the Doctor could hold himself to.
Right.
Although one could draw some similar parallel lines to the Great Intelligence and the Yeti, a little bit.
Yes,
A
but
little.
like
A little bit. It's all about the central
Nestine
intelligence thing and the minions that sends out to do its
there are
dirty work.
similarities, but it's not as though the Nestine identifies him as like if they were the same and he had turned around and been, like in the moon base, you are known to us and you to me. If there was something like that because the Nestine were the great intelligence, then that would have that same type of link. But it doesn't really here. They don't even know he's not human until he tells them.
Besides, we know the great intelligence is Richard E. Grant now.
That's right, everyone. Watch out for Richard E. Grant.
Or Ian McKellen, take your pick.
Oh, by the way, since I found a picture of it, do we want to bring up the mark on the Doctor's arm?
His
I was looking
tattoo.
for it in the episode and I didn't see it during the shower.
It's on the lower half of his arm, on his right-hand side.
That's the tattoo that the Time Lords put on exiles, right?
The rumored tattoo that the Time Lords put on exiles, yes.
Wow. I was busy staring at his non-butt. The small of his back, I should say. By the way, a shower scene in Doctor Who. Who expects that? Not me.
Oh, what? No, I honestly didn't hear you properly.
Oh.
I got a lot of static through that.
Hmm.
Sorry, it's the new headset. I would have a better one if the cats hadn't destroyed the old one.
I heard you pretty clearly. I don't know. It might be a
No, no,
connection.
no. Occasionally, I'm getting a touch of digital breakup.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Randy's
not
connection
you.
is not the greatest.
Yeah, I think my roommates may also be using the connection. So
Okay, well, and I was talking about a shower scene in Doctor Who. Who expects that, you know?
mm.
With the Doctor, you know, maybe with the companion, although it is kind of supposed to still
If it
be a
was with
children's show.
if it was with the companion, it would be for a completely different reason, and it probably.
You probably
Okay,
wouldn't have made the cut.
I can't really say that JNT is the only one who would have pulled that, but
We're not. He won't be the only one, but he's the most obvious one.
like
Mm,
this was not a sexy shower to entice the
this is
parents.
utilitarian.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But
So
yeah, the in real life, John Pertwee there has a tattoo from when he was in the service,
uh yeah,
and
and this was
because it was so
before.
blatantly on camera, a lot of people have made up a lot of different
You
rumors to figure out
you
how it got there.
you said you found a picture. Want to post that in the Skype chat?
Oh, actually, I got a couple of them, but sure, I can. I'll click on this one to enlarge for the
Yeah,
folks at
and of course
home.
this was before they could digitally remove such things.
Remove it. Yeah.
Because these days, if a actor had a tattoo like that they didn't want to see on him, they would just physically remove
Oh,
it.
that's why, because it was after the shower. That's why I missed it. I
Well,
stopped looking for it.
you could see it occasionally during the shower, but yeah, it was also very immediately evident after the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's kind of unusual. You would think they would have thought about that, but
The main difference Russell would have had to this scene is that the doctor would not have been wearing a towel, because for
And
some
what?
reason the new show is obsessed with naked doctor.
to a degree,
Yeah.
yes.
Mind you, the naked Christopher Eccleston in Dalek makes sense because they're bioscanning him and treating him like
Yeah.
a thing.
I guess
Mhm.
the naked David Trout, and I mean, wow,
David
David
Trout.
Tennant.
David Troughton, what?
The
It's
naked David
amalgam.
Tennant kind of makes sense. He's in his birthday suit and such.
Um, and let's not even mention Matt Smith's. Yeah.
Multiple forays into nudity.
It's a hologram outfit.
Yeah, you were talking Russell T Davies was doing it.
Well, yeah,
The Moffat has overboarded it.
in that case, I was more saying reincarnated show there, but yeah.
New Who, yeah.
Either producer we've had would have had the Doctor completely nude in this scene.
When was Tennant?
In Journey's End.
Oh, yes. After coming back, and even there's a good writing plausible reason for it, considering
Yeah.
that was a clone that basically grew out of nothing. You're not going to grow clothing.
That'd
Hmm.
be awesome if he did, though.
Although if it were I'm like, there are children's shows where the people are strangely born with clothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's usually very G-rated shows,
Yeah.
and not full family viewing. Where they're trying to make sense. But what I'm saying is the difference is that Moffat's nudity for Matt Smith, other than when he kind of did it in The Lodger, but the one in particular and uh, Time of the Doctor was just pointedly stupid.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
entirely there for the fangirls who are going to apparently miss his body.
Yeah.
Don't know why,
Uh,
because he's like an extremely pale twig.
An extremely pale, hairless twig, I might also add. I got one chest hair, says Matt Smith as he raises his shirt.
Anyway,
Smooth as a baby's bottom.
so yeah, this was the
Smooth
first
as a
time we'd
Ken doll.
seen. I don't think we'd ever seen the Doctor's forearm before in the show.
No, we haven't.
And I don't think we've ever seen it again until the new series.
True.
So we had no idea if this tattoo was something the Doctor got while drunk in his youth and held on through all of his regenerations or not. Fan base varied on why it was there. People speculating it might have been a mark of exile. Um, of course, it's apparently a tattoo of a snake, but some say it looks more like a question mark. Again,
It,
fan base is going nuts.
well, it is upside down and it is awkward angle, so. Mm.
Yeah, but you can see the head, you can see the tail, so
A troll statement popped into my mind when you said snake. But
Snake.
Anyway,
Watch out for
um,
snakes.
it's there to symbolize the master.
my side comment was a reverse time infection by the Mara.
Or it could have just been that after his regenerations, the Time Lords were screwing around with him and just went, "Oh, you want that too?"
What?
Oh
Did
yeah,
it,
well,
what?
considering the Time Lords chose this body for him, you could just see a couple of the guys in the council going, "Let's give him a tattoo." This
Yeah, because they
snake
did.
right on the arm.
They did mention that the Corsair had to get his slash her tattoo redone every time she regenerated.
Yeah, but he apparently comes off the thing with this, so either that or they regenerated him and then they're sitting there in the on Gallifrey going, "Let's give him a tattoo."
Or they pulled out the permanent markers and went.
So there's got to be some asshole on the High Council or working for the High Council that just came up with that.
They just came up with that on the fly because they wanted to screw with the Doctor. They didn't want to mess with him, so yeah, let's make this little thing on his arm. Yeah.
Or it could have even been the Master in a particularly juvenile moment.
It's just Sharpie. That's all
Yeah.
it is Sharpie.
It's just Sharpie, and the Master was messing
I
with
have
him.
you now, Doctor. Soon you'll have a tattoo. Oh, wow.
Try to explain this to your human friends, Doctor.
Yeah, I did.
Wow. I must be more messed up than I thought. Anyway. So, yeah, the Nestine, yeah, they're a little bit like the Great Intelligence in the fact that they're a big unimind thing. But they also apparently have a body and, of course, the whole plastic thing. And,
mind
yeah,
anything like a unibrow? Unibrow.
No. Just no. Just no. Anyway, but so they had to so what did you guys think of the Nestine and the Autons? Just
Nestine and Autons themselves, the Nestine seemed a bit rushed, I guess. It didn't last very long.
It looks like. I mean, it was kind of creepy for me. The little eye-like thing in the center of the plastic wrap that seemed to be either trying to breathe or trying to break free of what it was encased in. That was kind of disturbing, but.
But yeah, when it went to hentai porn, there it was just like,
Bill.
It was getting a little ridiculous. But the mannequins themselves were pretty effective, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill, your thoughts?
I think they were pretty good. I mean, I don't think they really needed a tentacle monster, but at this point, monsters had become so ingrained in Doctor Who that I think they were afraid the audience wouldn't get it unless there was actually a physical monster to kill.
Okay. I remember looking, and this is, mind you, being a child of the 80s and 90s, looking back on this episode.
Yeah.
Looking at the shop window dummies, Autons, and obviously telling that they were guys in masks, so I wasn't as freaked out as they were. I think the new series made them better at looking artificial, but I think the actors that were doing it pulled off the Autons better in this particular episode.
Yes.
That and practical effects look more like plastic than CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought they looked way too cartoony in the new series. It's
That
kind of
of
disappointing.
that would be
Well,
my number one complaint about Rose is the CGI plastic.
actually, most of the CGI plastic, the CGI Autons, I actually like in Rose. I just don't like how they moved.
Mhm.
Um, they should have been more smoothly moving.
They should have been
But the
slow and ponderous, thinking what they're doing and preparing to attack, instead of just this weird, silly, jerky movement.
hmm a silly jerky movement was what I found was stupid. Um,
But yeah,
but the
the
way
silly
they
face here
looked,
with the doctor fighting the tentacle.
I didn't mind because they looked very much like most modern shop window dummies look. So that didn't bother me so much. There's been a big evolution in, how we make shop window dummies look from
I
1970 to now.
I was just thinking of how the fake Mickey is like
Oh,
pulled into the dumpster.
I'm not even
Yeah,
talking about fake Mickey. Fake
That
Mickey
that
had a lot of
was
issues.
fake
yeah.
Mickey was terrible.
It
And the
was it
dumpster.
was
So so is so so
I'm
is
just talking
trash
about the
animated.
actual shop window dummy autons themselves. Yeah, the CGI in Rose for first of all fake Mickey and the dumpster bit were both terrible. And I'll admit that straight out. I'll admit it more when we actually cover the episode.
Which will be
But
coming up eventually.
I thought the costume design on the Autons themselves, the generic Autons, the shop window dummies, was better in 2005 than in 2007. I thought the actor portrayal of the
I'll take
Auton,
that. I think they looked
or excuse
more,
me, in
yeah, more
1970,
Mannequin in the
but I thought
newer one.
but the actor portrayal of the Autons I liked better in the 1970s one than I did in the 2005.
And I can see where you're coming with the look of them, but I would also argue at the same time that um, you don't want the dummies, at least back then, to look like normal shop window dummies either, because they are meant to be these sinister things that come to life out of the blue. And
Actually,
I
I
would
thought
also
they
argue
are.
that not all of the
I
shop
think
window
they're.
dummies came to life in this one, whereas
Let
the
me
modern
finish.
one they did.
Yeah. No, no, they had
I think the
this
thing
three
with
fish.
Autons is they get their sinisterness from the fact that they are everyday objects.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, the fact that you are seeing a everyday object come to life and move is what makes them creepy. It
yeah.
is kind of what makes Child's Play creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I like them to look as authentic as what you would see off there. I wished a few of them would almost have the more spongy foam faces in the modern one that I
Yeah.
see in a lot of them than the harder plastic. But I know the harder plastic does exist.
Then again, most mannequins that I see around at least are, headless and limbless and would not make very effective Autons.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to see a few of those come to life.
Oh God,
Awesome.
see them try to
A
squirm
nearly
across the
limbless
floor.
Auton just kind of scooting down the aisle, and all of a sudden it just raises a limb, and a huge cannon comes out instead.
Yeah, that would have made it. That would have added a new level of creepiness to it for me.
Yeah, that
But
would.
that would have been a
Yeah,
lot more
I can kind
CGI
of see
work.
that.
That would have
Yeah.
been a lot more CGI work. Um, but no, I mean a lot of these were the display, the storefront displays, and a lot of those are full body mannequins. Um, because they're showing off the shirt, the pants, etc. And they usually don't do the headless stuff for that because they also, well, maybe they do a little more now because the hats aren't as big of a display anymore. Used to be that hats were a big thing too,
Yeah,
as part of an ensemble.
usually when I see hats on display, it's just a head, which actually, just head Autons would have been pretty creepy too if they had pulled that
That
off.
would
Yeah.
have been. Oh, that would have been nuts.
Oh,
But what
yeah,
I mean,
watching those things hop around.
but what I mean is when you're showing an ensemble,
Yeah,
yeah, that if back in like the 70s and 60s, a hat was part of a suit ensemble.
right.
You would have the pants, the shirt, the vest, the tie, the suit coat, the overcoat, and the hat as all part of one ensemble that you would have as a display to attract guys to go, hey, look, this is what you want to wear. Likewise, women tended to wear a lot of hats back then too. Jackie Kennedy Onassis was well known for her little pillbox hats, and those had become kind of a ragey style at the time. Those of you more modern that don't know who I'm talking about, think is it Dr. Girlfriend from the Venture Brothers?
Yeah.
Wore basically Jackie Kennedy's outfit.
Numerous times, yes.
Complete with the little hat.
Anything else we wanted to cover?
Let's see. We covered the Autons. We covered that. Oh, yeah, I did. I got to mention the Autons. I didn't get to mention the Nest team. And that is, there's one line every time I see when you first see what's in that trunk that immediately pops into my mind. I look at that thing in the tank and I go, when sea monkeys go wrong. It's like, my misty brain goes in and that's immediately what comes out. Because, yeah, it is kind of that cheesy, and it is kind of a bizarre end to it. There is one more thing I wanted to mention. The subplot with the man and his wife. I think it is, isn't it?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
that's worth talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think Doctor Who had done a side thing to that scale with this type of character before. I might be wrong, but I know there had been attempts, but I think this is the first one that went this far with it.
Oh, good. I'm surprised. I'm glad I remembered it.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you guys feel about it? Did it add or detract from the episode?
I mean, I think it was helpful. Like at first, I'm saying here, like, what's this guy about? But it's sort of like how I mentioned Russell being inspired by it. It's a lot of the adding an everyday person so that you can really see what's going on, and that's or feel it. Like he's not military. He's not part of the conspiracy. He's just a guy who is not a perfect person, but is still caught up in it and is dealing with it, and so that adds a flavor of reality to the world. And then there's also the bonus that he's also used to progress the plot in that the Autons come and menace his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also the fact that we are seeing a little bit of what would happen to normal people outside the usual group that we expect.
Right.
Is kind of what they're trying to attempt a little bit of.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to it other than that.
Yeah. By the way, apparently there's a series of Auton videos.
Yeah. Yeah. Those were more BBV stuff, I believe.
I think so. Yeah. Now that you mention it.
Because they couldn't do because I think it was like probe stuff really, but it they labeled them
I
as
think
Autons.
the probe stuff did include
Eventually
Autons.
get
Yeah.
into Autons, yeah. I think it's
Auton,
actually a Probe
Auton 2,
spin-off.
Sentinel, Auton 3.
Yeah, I think they're spin-offs of Probe.
Looks interesting.
Yeah.
I might have to try and dig those up now. Because it looks like they definitely tried to borrow some of the designs from the 70s.
Oh yeah, because at that point that's really the same budget scale. They were doing it 20 years later, but on a non-professional budget.
Yeah.
So, I guess we should be up to summary now, since we've got about 15 minutes left.
Thereabouts.
Your final thoughts, Matt?
My final thoughts? Admittedly, I did not watch it recently, but I have seen it not too long ago. Within the last couple months, I I very much remember liking it the first time. I liked it the last time I saw it. I'm just sad I didn't have enough time to actually watch it again, but I'd say this is actually another pretty strong opener for a new Doctor, and the Autons were a very interesting new enemy that we sadly do not see enough of, to be honest. We have not seen enough Autons. There's so much more that can be done with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do like. I mean, they kind of get to reserve some of their strength by being used, every few decades or so, rather than say certain things that I could mention that certain producers like to use over and over again until they become
At least once
ridiculous.
a season, yeah.
Exterminate.
He's talking about the
Uh,
angels.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually thinking the Daleks too, but I was thinking more the Daleks with Russell than the Angels with Moffat. I guess everybody has their kind of their pet thing. It'll be interesting to see what Moffat's replacement comes up with.
Hopefully something better than Angels. The love of God, something better than
To
Angels.
be fair, if you're going to talk about someone overusing the Daleks and making a joke out of them, you have to go all the way back to God damn it. Why is it I remember names only when I don't mean to say them? Terry Nation as the writer and, of course, producer. God damn it. She's too important to forget her name. Why would I not say her name? Damn it. I'm a failure.
Bill, do we need to write up a list of names?
No, it's only when I go to say it out loud that I forget it.
Okay.
The original producer, though.
Verity Lambert.
Thank you. Oh, I cannot believe I could not pull her name out of my head.
You. Brain Cell has performed an illegal operation and will be shut down. If product possessed, please contact the Brain Cell vendor.
Would you like to send an error report? Sending report. Damn it! Now I'm gonna be sitting here for 5 minutes for nothing. Click, 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 click.
Freaking! Why do I run my brain on Windows ME?
Wow.
I'm scared. I don't even know what that is.
For all the children that don't know what Windows ME, Windows 8.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stay away from even thinking about Windows 8 still. So
Even though they are definitely making some improvements, I still won't touch it with a 10-foot
I should
pole.
have said Vista. I should have said Vista. I'm sorry.
Yeah, more people
Not that
it.
much better, but
See, the thing is, I've never used Vista. I knew enough from its reputation not to go near it, whereas I did use ME a couple times.
Yep. I knew enough about Vista to stay away from it too. I rode XP until 7 came out. And then I switched horses.
I switched horses because I had to, and 8 wasn't out yet.
I rode 2000 until I couldn't get a computer with 2000 anymore, then I finally went to XP.
Oh no, I actually baited XP, so I knew it was pretty badass when it came out. I was like, I like this. I'm good to be a part of it. I'll go with this for a while. And then I heard Vista, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait a bit to see how Vista works. It doesn't. Okay, keep writing. And then Windows 7, and Windows 7 fixed all of Vista's problems. Let's switch horses now. And now I'm writing 7, and 8's out, and people don't like it. So I'm going to keep writing, and hope 9 fixes all of 8's problems.
7.
And this is how you...
Will 9 be assuming that your home PC is a tablet too?
And that's when we just snap we look at Windows and go, to hell with you.
And that's when
and we go back to DOS.
Anyway, we've just made a 5-minute tangent on a snide remark.
Wouldn't be the podcast without that.
So,
Happens all
moving
the
right
time.
along.
I hope you kids in the audience learn something.
Yeah,
I
we could
didn't, but that's just me.
we can
Yeah.
ruin the podcast ourselves.
So, who else wanted to add their final thoughts?
Well, I believe Erin still needs to technically go.
Yep.
Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I'm still here. Believe me, I'm still here. I really liked this episode. I watched a lot of Tom Baker, John Pertwee, and Peter Davison. Because that was what was replaying on PBS a lot of the time, and also that's what the library had in VHS tapes for Doctor Who. With I think maybe there were one or two VHS tapes with Troughton and I'm blanking on the first Doctor's name now.
William Hartnell.
Yeah, Hartnell stories. So yeah, and it also kind of promised the future of the Terror of the Autons too. Now that I knew that it was coming up, so I'm giving. I don't know, how high do we go for stars?
We're not doing the rating yet. We're just doing final thoughts.
Oh yeah, I really liked it.
We'll swing back around for rating here in a minute or two.
Okay, I liked it. I also liked the fact that it was a little bit more Earth-centric because it kind of brought the threat home more. That's it for me.
Yep. Okay, so I'll give my final thoughts. This was an episode that had a lot of goals going into it. It had a lot of things it had to do, and I think it succeeded in nearly, if not every goal it set out to do. It established a new Doctor. It established Unit as a regular feature. It established the Brigadier as a regular feature. It established a new enemy. And while I personally do not think this episode is as good as its sequel, Terror of the Autons, I think it's pretty close.
Yes. Most definitely yes. Of course, Terror of the Autons had help with the fact that we also had the Master going in the background, and just you can imagine every time the camera's not on him going as he continues to continue to push the plastic factory on. But that's just Terror of the Autons.
And the fact that you're deliberately making the Master more campy than he was in that era.
Oh, you know he was loving it.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and give our ratings. Matt.
I was gonna figure you're gonna do that.
I'm mentally picturing you to my left, Bill in front of me, Erin to my right, and I just kind of go clockwise, starting with you.
Yeah.
So, trying to put a number to this. Very good. Actually, something else to bring up is that there's a lot of actual on location shooting with the Autons, which turned out really well.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a huge boost and boon to this particular story. The costumes may be a little meh, but the effects were definitely there for this one. Oh, and also one of my favorite Doctors. He's definitely in the top 5 list for me. And he did a really good job the first outing already, so 4 at least. Being harsh on it, 4.
Okay. Bill.
Well, I'm gonna say, I mean, definitely great writing, tense episode, outstanding acting, brilliant, directing and production. I really see no fault. I mean, there might be minor quibbles. It didn't need a physical monster, things of that nature, but really, there's no serious fault that I can give this episode. So I'm gonna give it a 5.
Erin.
I think I would give it at least 4 stars. Yeah, it's not perfect, I guess, but it's pretty far up there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have to agree with the majority here and give it a 4. And I'm only giving it a 4 instead of a 5 because I know there are better episodes.
Yes.
It's the same reason a gymnastics will give somebody a 9.8 instead of a 10 because he knows there's going to be a performance that's going to be better than that.
That was the best performance they've seen all day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, there are no real technical faults other than the fact that the monster looked a little rubbery. Um,
Yeah,
I didn't even have a problem with its look, just the fact. I mean, the only complaint I would have it is that they really didn't need a physical monster. Just the concept really would have served the purpose, but it's kind of there to dumb it
yeah,
down
if they
enough
if
because
if they
this
hadn't,
is
then it
something
really
Doctor Who audiences expect.
yeah, if they hadn't had a monster though, it really would have been the Great Intelligence.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing about the Great Intelligence is there wasn't a physical boss. So at that point, the Autons would have just been another thing controlled by the Great Intelligence. So I guess they decided they needed to have something there for the Nesteens
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and a goal for the Autons to make something. So it wasn't that. I
Or
just
or
thought that
even if they or even if they just said that the transmitters are essentially brain cells, and it essentially the consciousness is what happens when they're on the same planet as each other.
uh, I just
Mm.
I just dislike the fact that the ultimate consciousness for a race of plastic controlling creatures happens to look like a frickin' crustacean crossed with a Lovecraftian tentacle monster.
To be fair, I
That
do think
was
it looks
And that
better.
the
I
best they
think it
can
looks
do to the
better
doctor
here
is
than
make
it
him.
does in.
You on?
I think it looks better here than it did in 2005, but.
mm,
At the same time, I also would argue that we didn't need to see the doctor making silly faces while hugging a plastic prop.
yeah, but that was again also because they hadn't quite established that he was a doctor of action, not a doctor of comedy,
Yeah.
which they really should have. But I think they really hadn't gotten the idea of making the doctor as as far opposite of his previous version at this point. But yeah, so a 4 out of 5, which means we've got a 4, a 4, a 4, and a 5. So that
This is a,
is,
a 4.25 average.
I think that's about right.
It's up there. It's definitely up there, but as three out of the four of us pointed out, it's definitely not perfected. There's a few things that could have been done a lot better, and we know it could have been done better.
Yeah,
But
I
for the most
agree.
part, especially considering its time, it was done very well.
Yeah, I like I said, it seems like almost a practice run for Terror of the Autons.
Mm-hmm.
It does, and that's. I mean, I try not to look at it. It's we. I try not to judge it as someone who's already seen what comes after. Looking at it as just the brand new opening to this new version of Doctor Who, without realizing eventually there will be a master, and so on and so forth.
All right, so there's the decision, 4.25 from the judges. Tune in next week when we will go forward 5 years in time to 1975 and Tom Baker's premiere in Robot.
Oh dear. Oh dear, the blue screen. Oh dear.
Yeah, they discover overlay by then.
Oh my.
Chroma key.
Chroma key, thy name is robot. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
One.